Welcome to the show. Yes, this is the Suicide Prevention Show, and this is not your doctor's boring symposium. We are waking up the world, and helping us wake up the world, taking us into the power, the absolute power of trust and the power of intentional manifestation. So continuing this conversation, and this time we are going to do it with my friend, Debbie Anderson. So Debbie is someone who you're going to want to know, because between the two of us, I'm boring. Debbie, join me in the studio. And there you are. Hey. You'll have to unmute still. I can sort of see you, but I can't hear you yet.
Okay, let me just.
There you go.
Oh, let me put everything back in again. And yay, a little bit too bright. Let me just tone me down a bit. There we go.
All right, you did that very well. I'm very impressed.
Thank you so much.
All right, so Debbie, we'll take one step at a time, because
yes,
you have this very unique global positioning system. So it's not easy to place you geographically. Yeah, so tell us, where are you now?
At this precise moment, I'm in Mazatlan in Mexico. You can tell this is an English accent, and I actually live in Canada. So I'm sort of all over the place, and I conclude that Spirit always placed me where I'm supposed to be, and that's why I'm here in Mazatlan, Mexico. So it's beautiful. And I apologize about the fan here, but it's 29 plus and it's 7 o'clock and it's not cooling down. It's just getting warmer. So I am not complaining.
For 29 plus, that has to be Celsius.
Oh yes, Celsius, which I think is about 80 something in metric. Sorry.
Well, Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all about context. And
yes.
So since I'm not hearing the fan, it's not going to bother me a bit.
Good. Perfect.
There we go. We're good. All right. So let's talk about power, and then we'll talk about intentional manifestation, because these are two topics that could change the world if people are willing to let it change their world.
Yes.
So where do you want to start? Because you get to take us on this journey. I'm going to keep us on the rails so that we stay on time. But all right, you get to take us where you want to go.
Well, let's just start, like I always say to everybody, every journey step starts with one step at a time. Mm-hmm. And in my early years, I was able to connect with spirit. And although it took me a while to understand what that meant, because no one in my family back in the 1950s was spiritually open to that kind of thing.
So what does it mean to connect with spirit?
Well, it means I see dead people. I sense them, I feel them, I hear them. I don't taste them particularly, but I always wonder, because I sort of get into that feel, smell, hear, and no, I do not taste them. Well, I taste like flavors. Sometimes I might taste cigarette smoke or oranges or things like that. I prefer to taste oranges than cigarette smoke, but there you go. So I hear, see, sense, feel, and I share messages with people. I'm all about raising the vibration and sharing the positive, which, you know, that's sort of my bag, as it was. So anyway, stepping along my journey, I'm almost 64. In fact, I'm 64 tomorrow. So the Beatles song says, will you still need me? Will you still feed me? Will come right into play. So I've stepped across the veil, so to speak, several times in my lifetime. The first time when I was 11.
You're going to have to stop and explain that euphemism. What does step across the veil mean?
All right. So some people say it's when we die and come back kind of thing. I always say it's that between that we've not actually left. Spirit basically throw us back out. They don't want us to die.
So the near-death experience.
Near-death experience, yeah. Yeah, right. So I call it stepped across the veil. And the first time that happened was when I was 11. I almost drowned. In my late teens, I did try to take my own life with an overdose due to wanting my parents to hear, see, and love me, most of all. Yep, it was a real roller coaster of a ride. I struggled with depression at that time, and I just had my son at 18. and he was still a baby. So in those days, I think it was called the baby blues. And the last time, thus far, I was in my 30s and I was raped and strangled almost to death. But here's the thing, each time, it's as if spirit pulled me back or threw me back. At each of those integral points, I got to redecide, if you like, what I would do next. And each time that happened for me personally, and I can't speak for others, but I have heard this is something that when they've come back, they've rejigged their life. They've re-looked at it. They've taken that step into, what can I do to change this? What do I need to do? And I suppose for me, that's the definition of trust. Because I had to trust in spirit, basically to say, we don't want you yet. Or maybe they don't want me at all, I don't know. And for them to make that decision, even though I was obviously at 11 years of age, I definitely did not want to die. But when I was in my late teens, I couldn't see anything. I was heavy with that energy of, I want to be loved, but I don't know why I want to be loved. You know, that's sort of where we go into that whole cycle. So each time they brought me back, it gave me an opportunity to define and decide. And in fact, the last time when I was in my 30s and I was raped and almost died, that was when I walked away from a very long-term relationship. And so it was a very important thing to do. And that was pure trust, pure faith.
Okay, hold it. I have to have a little context here. I'm sorry, because you were talking about a very traumatic event.
Right.
And then you were talking about leaving your relationship. Now, are these the same person in both the event and the relationship?
It was actually, yes.
Okay. I can't, even though the way you said it, it could have been two different things.
Yes.
Okay. So walking out of an abusive relationship, often by the time that we get to the point that we'll walk out of it is the time that we are most likely to die.
Yes.
Because things have escalated.
Yeah. I feel, because it wasn't the first time that I had tried to walk away, without going into all of that, it was that particular time, it almost felt that this crescendo of everything happening was for a reason. And this is where I always say to people that timing is of the essence. When things happen, there is no mistake, there is no error. We just have to trust in that. And yes, it was pretty scary for me. And yes, it took me on a roller coaster ride again with different things that I didn't know were going to happen. And for anybody that has left an abusive relationship, they'll be able to relate to that in that respect of understanding some of the semantics that happen with that. But for me, it was that divine power of trust. And that was me having faith that my instincts were correct. And when I talk about instincts in the relationship, because we're talking about the power of trust and manifestation, that's exactly what we can do with our dreams.
Okay. Now, are we talking dreams like what I'm on sleep?
Well, it can be either. So, all right. So let's look at it this way. You only have to ask a young child, what do you want to be when you grow up? And most will give you an answer in a heartbeat. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. I want to be this. I want to fly a plane. They have no restrictions. They don't think, oh, I've got to go to school, and that maybe the parent might say, well, you want to be a doctor or you want to do this, that's going to take this time. Do you know how much that's going to cost or whatever? But if you look at that child, they don't understand or comprehend what that adult is trying to tell them. They're not even, anyway, they're like, but that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to do. And many do achieve that. The one person I hold dear to my heart because I've had the opportunity to meet him was Chris Hadfield. He's a famous Canadian that not only became an astronaut, but he became the commander of the International Space Station. And he also did that famous recording of David Bowie's Space Oddity that went viral. He actually recorded it in space. And he now teaches kids about science in space and, you know, how to be an astronaut and so forth. So let's step back. He was born in 1959, so 2 years after I was born, in Sarnia, in Ontario, in Canada, where there is no space program, nothing. But he believed, because after watching the Apollo 11 moon landing, and he tells this story himself, he told his parents, I'm going to be an astronaut. Mm-hmm. And he got there because he trusted in making it happen. He had to go quite a long journey to get there, but he never gave up that hope. And if you've ever read his biography or listened to him on many of the opportunities that I've had to see him talk, he tells this journey. And it wasn't just a case of, I'm going to be an astronaut, bang, it happened. He had many times when he was basically thrown off track, you know, couldn't do this, wasn't allowed to do that, this was canceled, that was, you know, and so on and so on and so on. And we all know that in our lives. You know, we have this idea of what we're going to do, then all of a sudden it gets rearranged for us. But he never lost the faith. He trusted, he wanted to be an astronaut, and he achieved it. You know, like to be a Canadian and the commander of the International Space Station. Holy Hannah, I would think that's like the epitome of where you want to be and what you want to do. So I love that. And there are many stories like that. And if we have, you know, if we go back into our childhood, excuse me, and we relate and we recall the things that we wanted to be, and you know, for instance, in my life, I wanted to go into the Royal Navy. I wanted to be a Wren. And I wanted to do the radar. That was what I really wanted to do. I was so excited about it. And then I heard in those days, women did not go to sea. I'm like, I don't want to be stuck in an office somewhere. I want to go to sea because I love the sea and everything nautical. You know, I've got a seafaring family when I go back. You know, my grandfather was in the Merchant Navy. My father was in the Merchant Navy, and yada, yada, yada kind of thing. So I loved everything to do with water. So that changed my perspective. And of course now, thankfully, women are allowed to go to sea because things have changed. So my next thought was I wanted to be a policewoman. But I was too short. So it was almost like I was picking all these without knowing it, that I was picking these jobs or careers that I wanted to do, but for some reason they weren't going to be because of this or because of that. So of course then life goes on. But if we all reflect back to that time, those dreams we had, even, you know, watching small children and their dreams that they have today, as in what they want to be and what they want to do, they have no restrictions. Mm-hmm. So this is where I want to go on about how we can begin manifesting intentionally. Because
this is really cool because children have intention. They know what they want, which is that, am I correct that this is a definition of intention, to simply know what you want?
Yeah, and following, because intention, some people say, well, intention's good or bad or whatever. Intention is just that you're going to do something or you want something and you follow through on it. And that's all it is. It's that trust that it's going to happen. It's going to be.
All right, so I grew up with a phrase, and the phrase was, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. How does that fit into this conversation?
I think that was just a threat that was used upon people when they wanted to have what I call the get out, the cop-out clause, that they didn't want to accept it. You know, it's like the the negative Nelly in your life that says, it's never going to work, it's a waste of time. And you're like, yes, it is, you know. And some people say to me, well, you're like Pollyanna. I said, oh, come on, I am very much a realist. But for something silly like playing cards, and we haven't got a hope in heck's chance of winning, but I still say, hey, we can still do it, because it's that whole vibration. When we change that vibration to it's not going to work, you know, is going to hell in a handbasket, you know, all of those kind of little negative phrases that we allow to infiltrate, because they do infiltrate our lives, because that's the way people are. We are, as humans.
Yeah, we absorb what we're exposed to.
Exactly.
I've become very selective about what I'm exposed to.
Me too.
Yeah, it's absolutely, I mean, I vet every single speaker, you know, have a one-on-one conversation for every single speaker on my summit. I have made very few exceptions for that rule. It has never gone well. You know, if I don't resonate with someone, then they're not a good fit for my show.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to understand that that was my job. I didn't have to do anything else. That was my main job, was to make sure that the people who came on the show were people who I matched with energetically. When you're talking about intentional manifestation and power, what is the biggest problem people have with this, Debbie? Because when you talk about it, it kind of sounds kind of simple.
Okay, so think of it like going on a diet. That's the analogies I'm going to use, because I've been on many diets. Okay, so it's an easy one that we can all, well, not everybody, but most can relate to, because usually it starts off with the intention of, I am going to lose weight. This is what I'm going to do. So the first thing we have to do is really clean out our fridge, our cupboards of all the junk, all the crapola, the stuff that when you eat it,
easier.
Yeah. So when we eat it, it puts on weight. We feel stodgy and, as I call it, in low energy. And that's what intentional manifestation is about. We have to clear the stage, basically. And think of the foods as thoughts, as words, as people, as the things that we surround ourselves with. And therefore we stock our refrigerator, our cupboards, our heart, our head, especially our head, with all those good intentions, like we did when we were on the diet. I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. I'm going to go for a run, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to eat a bowl of fruit, and then I'm going to do this or yoga or whatever. So we have a plan. And that's the important thing. What is my intention?
Okay, so that's really interesting, because I'm thinking about kids who don't have a plan, but kids, when they want something, they are totally unrestrained. They think about it all the time. They talk about it all the time. They go to sleep dreaming about it. They wake up talking about it.
And that's exactly what we need to do as adults. We've forgotten, we've unlearned it. And we need to relearn it again, to put it back into there.
Oh, what an interesting thought. Okay. So doing that for a short period of time is not so hard. But doing that for a lifetime is something that there's not a lot of guidance or support around that. Actually, there probably is, and I just haven't seen it. So I'm not going to put it that way. I'm going to put it this way. Let's play with this. If someone wants something, let's make it happen for them. So intentional manifesting.
So the big thing that we need to remember is stepping into our attention. There's no right or wrong. I already said that. But it's a way of connecting to what I call our personal or spiritual check-in. So we're checking in with whether it's the God, the universe, our heart, you know, our whoever it is. Potato, a friend of mine says. I love that, because it's whatever it is. So we have to, intention is what I deem as our own truth, what we each believe. And we have to trust in that belief. And when we talk about it, we have to talk and as if it's already here.
Well,
so we don't say, I want to be rich, or I want to be thin. I am thin, I am rich. And as much as that may at the time seem like, but I'm not, because every time you put that in, you're then putting that little bit of junk food back into your refrigerator again.
All right, so how do you suspend the part of the brain that says reality check?
Okay, so this is what I do. And I use this with a lot of intentional work that I do, not just the manifestation, everything. See, our head is our, you're going to make a mistake. I want to protect you. So I'm going to tell you of all the things that can go wrong. That's our head. And our heart is, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so there's this little battle that can happen between these two elements that are all interconnected. And if anybody's read Dr. Bruce Lipton or Greg Braden, Quantum Physics and the Biology of Belief, we are exactly that. We are this interconnected vibrations of energy with ourselves and everything around us. So when I'm having, my heart is having that conversation with me and it's saying, hey, we're going to manifest this. And my head drops in, yeah, but you know what happened last time? I would think of it like a little devil and a little angel on my shoulder. You know what happened last time? You got all excited and then. So this is what I do. I say to my head, thank you for sharing. So by saying thank you, and if we do this, I always say to people, if you're not sure on this, practice this with somebody that's giving you the negative output to something you want to do. If you just say to them, thank you for sharing, what that does is it's acknowledging them. And this is acknowledging our head that wants to protect us and doesn't want us to make a mistake and saw what happened last time and how it turned out for us, and they don't want us to go there. So it is in a protective mode. But when we say, thank you for sharing, it stops the conversation with our head butting in. And you might have to do that several times. You might go back into your heart that's saying, yeah, we're going to do this, and la. And it said, yeah, but hang on a minute. Don't run down that road yet. And you go, thank you for sharing. And then it shuts it down again.
So allowing the full expression of the thought, even though it seems to be a limiting thought or a negative thought, allowing the full expression of the thought. I think that's really key.
Yeah, it's very, very, very key. There is no other element to it because we've all fundamentally done this, you know, and I say sometimes I feel like we're a little hamster on the wheel going around. We don't want to be there doing that, but every time we step off of it, we fall. Or, you know, I would say it's always going too fast and we injure ourselves because we're not in that synchronicity, that combination of the vibration, because we're fighting against it. The hamster has to keep going for the wheel to keep turning. Mm-hmm. So, but nothing changes. So, and it's a bit like starting the diet when you've still got all the junk food in there. You have to clear that out. That is one of the key things you have to do. Clear out the negative. Sorry.
That's okay. This is the how-to. This is how do you clear out the mental junk food?
Yes.
And it's by allowing yourself to want something and allowing your head to argue with whether or not it's possible or viable or a good idea, and then just thanking it for the argument.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. It's such a simple thing. And we can do this in actual life as well. And I call it actual life when somebody is doing that. You need to do this, you need to do that. And you don't want to say, yeah, but, okay, that's not going to fit with me. If you just say to them, thank you for sharing, they feel like you've heard them and you're going to do it even if you're not. And I'm not saying that's trying to lead somebody down the garden path, but it can stop that conversation. It can stop the pain that we go through.
You know, I was going, wait a minute, where is this? It resonated with me because I learned what's it called? assertiveness training technique, that when somebody is, talking about a reality that's true for them but not for me, and instead of arguing with them, the response from an assertiveness training point of view is similar. It's, you might be right.
Yeah.
And it allows for the other person to feel heard and acknowledged without committing me to an action.
Yeah.
Without saying I agree.
So this is taking it one step further, because if we really don't, and it doesn't resonate with us, it's almost like we're saying it in a painstaking way to agree with them, even though we don't want to agree with them. But whereas if we say, thank you for sharing, we don't have to take on board that energy if it really doesn't resonate with us. And this works for many, many things. I tell people this is one of my key little go-tos, if you like, in my go-to bag. Somebody, you've just come back and you just had a beautiful haircut or something like that, and somebody goes, wow, I done that, and you're feeling really great, and all of a sudden your whole energy just goes into this. Whereas if we just say, thank you for sharing, we're still keeping up there and we can just move on down the line. We don't have to take it on board. And I think this is where a lot of energy gets, attached to us. And I don't mean attached as in stuck to us, but it's like we go through this fog sometimes. And when we come out the other side, we're feeling very heavy. And it's like, I need to take off this shroud. I need to take off this coat that is not mine. Whereas we say, thank you for sharing. I always say to people, especially in workplaces or family situations, it doesn't matter. You just say, thank you for sharing. And then it moves on without having to fight it.
There you go. That's a lovely thing, because not having to fight our families is a big deal. And
Yes.
Not having to fight the internal family, which is where we started with this, is a huge deal. When I was reading and the philosophies were about, you have to kill the ego or things like this, I'm like, no, it has a purpose. It's part of me. Why would I wish part of me to be dead? And so I've always had a real challenge with those. This is a very gentle approach, Debbie.
Yes. The main thing with manifesting, and this is what I say to everybody, identify what you want and do it with intention. Like, be like that 2-year-old child, no restrictions. When we see it and we believe it, then we manifest it. And anyone who could create a dream, they need to know that you need to feed and water it daily. You can't just plonk the seed in there and then walk away and have that expectation that in a nanosecond it's going to appear. We have to work on it. Like when we're learning a new skill, we can't just turn up for the first lesson at that school and say, hey, now I'm an achieved artist. We have to learn the techniques. We have to buy into that. We have to make it our everyday dream. So here's something that I did just recently, because with everything that's going on, we're sort of stuck here. And I know people might go, that's strange, but there's reasons at the moment we can't get back to Canada. There are no flights, one. And, we have to go across water together. So I said, I sat and had this conversation and said, okay, to my husband, we're going to manifest a place here in Matalan, which is free, because at the moment we're renting. And she says, I want to be able to see the ocean, because at the moment where we are, we're slightly in residential area. And I want to be able to see sunsets. And my husband said, okay. And then at that point, I'm like, I started visualizing. And I started to visualize because we've been to visit some friends that had a beautiful place right on the ocean. And, I'm like, oh, this is the place I want to be. It's really beautiful. And so in my mind, that was where I was. That, there was no way they were going to let us stay there for free. But you have to have this dream. So you have to find something that fits for you, even if it doesn't actually manifest in that exact format. But if we have that dream, we create that dream, we go into it, we feed it. So in my vision, I was at their place because that was the only thing at that time that I could relate to as ocean, sunset, you know, that kind of thing. So,
all of the criteria.
Yeah. So create your criteria. And even if you think, oh, yeah, but that's not possible, don't take that, don't fill it in there. Just keep creating it. Well, within days, here's the thing, literally within days, and, you know, I can't say that everything moves this quickly, but within days, somebody had said to me, hey, I don't know if you're interested, there's some house sitting gigs going on, and they're looking for people to house sit for the summer. I'm like, okay. But then I was led down that little pathway. The breadcrumbs sort of took me there, follow the breadcrumbs, and I get there and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not going to work. But I can see I need to try and connect to this person. So then I reached out to another friend that I know here. And I said, do you know this person? Because they are looking for somebody to house it. And she came back and she said, you would do something like that? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm asking. She said, do you want to sit in our house for the summer? I'm like, oh my God, I manifested something bigger than I had initially seen in my dream, in my vision, in my creation of my mind. And that's what we're doing.
Oh.
So this is the identify you want, no restriction, believe it, you need to manifest it. You've got to feed that dream daily. Keep building on it.
There's also the action step.
Yes.
You know, you picked up the phone and made a phone call.
Yeah, because that's it. That's when the breadcrumbs start to fall into place.
Ah, got it.
We have to follow, I always say we have to follow the trail. And sometimes we go down the trail. And I've done this myself, you know, because people say, oh, well, I wanted to go on this workshop and I got there, but it wasn't the thing I wanted. I'm like, okay, stop there. Maybe the pathway led you to the workshop. That was what you manifested, but there was something there that was beyond the workshop. So this is where we have to sort of follow the breadcrumbs. We have to listen, don't edit. Like if you get that sense, you know, like within days it popped up about this house sitting thing. So I followed it, but it was coming to these like little blockades because I'm like, I don't want to join this group and have to pay this amount of money if this doesn't work out. There's got to be a better way. Somebody here must know this person. So then we have to then create the trail. And obviously the trail was not leading me to what I initially thought was, which is something better. So this is why I say don't listen, but don't edit. Because we sometimes edit things. We go, oh, well, that can't be so. Oh, well, you know, now that the house sitting gig isn't going to be there because I got to pay all this money to join this group and this whatever. The other big thing is don't let others tell you it's impossible.
So that's an interesting thing that I'm still stuck on listen but don't edit.
Okay, listen but don't edit. Okay.
Yeah, because listen but don't edit. And the example you gave was really telling. Listen to the nudge, and the nudge was house sitting. Oh,
yes,
and it felt good. It landed well.
Yes.
And so the editing would have been if you had started to say, this isn't going to work, period, as opposed to this aspect isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This opportunity isn't going to work. And then it's, how can I find one that will? You didn't give up on the house sitting.
I just hadn't even thought of that as being a possibility.
Yeah.
I had just said, I want to stay here. I want it to be free. I want this. I want this. And so it was like, I'd never heard of people house sitting. Not in the respect of being here, but, you know, I had never looked into that. So it wasn't something I had thought, oh, let's maybe look into house sitting. But just out of the blue, then a friend messaged me and said, you know, there's this house sitting gig. Do you think you might be interested? And I, you know, so this is where we have to follow the breadcrumbs.
Got it. Okay.
And when we get the information, even if it leads us there, like this particular one, it led me to it, but I didn't want to have to invest nearly $1,000 to join this group just to get access to this person that wanted somebody to house sit for them.
Yeah.
So
But it got you into the mode of thinking about house sitting.
Yeah, and that's when I thought, well, I know this particular person that may know this person. So that was what I reached out and I said, do you know this person? And that's when they came back and said, I didn't know you were interested. Come and sit here. And we can. And it's far greater because I hadn't done any other restrictions. I hadn't said, I want 3 bedrooms, I want this. I had just said, free, sunset, see the ocean.
There you go. So getting down what's really important, not the minutia, but what's really important.
Yes.
Sounds like that's a critical step as well.
Yes. Don't let others tell you that it's impossible, because if we buy into that and listen to them, then the argument is lost, if you like.
God.
So this is where it's, again, aligning yourself to people who are going to support you, that are going to be there to encourage you, that are going to listen to you and not fight you.
That's important.
Very, very important. And in our case, it happened very, very quickly. But there's been other occasions when I've set into manifestation mode, which I do on a very regular basis, actually, is to be patient. Because, total transparency here. I'm not by nature a patient person. I'm the kind of girl, I want it and I want it now. Just like that 2-year-old. So there've been many times that I haven't got what I wanted right away. And this is when we have to step back into trust again, keep the faith, continue to see it as being there right now. Look, this is happening. Live it, breathe it, be it. It has to be your reality and you living in it, even if it's only in your head, in your dream, that your waking dreams or sleeping dreams. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it does take a little longer. And, if it doesn't come in the format that you had expectations of, be thankful for what you receive.
There you go.
And I say that because, say this is my manifestation. I want a red Ferrari. I want the red Ferrari. I want the car. I want the car. I want the car. And then Spirit going, oh, she stated a red Ferrari. Well, that's a real big shame because we have a green one here, but she stated red. Oh, well, put it back on the shelf. So maybe the car that you receive or the vehicle you receive in that case isn't the one that you had wanted. But I always look at it this way. If I get the beat up Ford truck or the Chev that's, got the paint rusting off it, but it gets me from A to B, then I've manifested it. And then you can build on that. Because that's where I throw my hands up with gracious thanks, because I've got that. I've got the answer to my dreams. Because sometimes, when people say, I need money for this, I always say, don't say it in money. Say it in the...
Okay, so that's an important point. I'm just going to pause. Because one is, I need money for this, meaning I need the means to get this.
That's correct.
I need to have it delivered how I want it. I need to have it how.
Yes.
And I tell people something I had learned from one of the books I read called suffering from mad how disease, when you need to know how it's going to happen or how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so in this case, you're saying that actually puts a buffer in the energy between who you are and what you want.
Yes. Because then it's like, well, how much money do you need?
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of books about goal setting and stuff that are very specific about dollar amounts.
Yes.
And I've studied some. I've been certified to teach several of these methodologies. And while they are great for figuring out, if I want this much income, I have to have this many clients, or I have to sell this many books or whatever. Yeah. Beyond that, I haven't found them overly useful.
No.
Though when I pointed out to somebody that in order for them to have the income they wanted, they would have to sell a significantly high number of their $10 widget, they decided to find another way to bring in the income they wanted and to use their widget as a giveaway.
Right.
Yeah, because they hadn't dawned on them that to deliver that many to bring in that income would not have given them what they wanted. So for the left brain analysis, it works.
Yeah. And there's been many times in my life, I grew up in a family which I gather now was poor, but I never knew that. I had no concept that I was a poor kid. I had school dinners and we had them every day. And I never realized that because we lined up and went in after everybody else, it was because we were the free dinner kids, the poor kids. And, when we would go to rummage sales or, jumble sales, I just thought it was so we could get other stuff. I never realized it was because my mom couldn't afford to buy clothing for us three kids. So that was the only way she could do it, to go to a jumble sale or rummage sale to keep us, kids going. So I've always, in my life, when I never see that I haven't got much. I always see that I have got an abundance, even if it's, as some people say, just enough. And, I can remember a friend coming over and I said, oh, do you want to stay to supper? And she opened my refrigerator and there was some eggs in there, some cheese in there, potatoes and onions. She said, what the heck are we going to have? I said, the most amazing omelet you have ever eaten. And she just looked at me because she was the takeout girl. She was the lady that always ate it out. And she did. And I said, it doesn't, like, whatever I've got, if I've invited you for a meal to stay and eat with me, I'm certainly not going to say, oh, hang on a minute, let me just cut this slice of bread in two. And then, so there was always enough there. And that was something that I had to do. I can remember Christmases where we didn't have a turkey. I couldn't put a stocking under the tree for my son, but I had a chicken, roast chicken. I had enough. Yeah. So again, in being in that graciousness and that thankfulness, that gratitude for what I get and what I'm given, rather than you gave me a chicken. Well, you could have just got the egg. So be thankful that you got the chicken, because that actually was a gift from somebody that was culling several of her chickens, and she knew that I hadn't got anything for that Christmas because of something that had happened. And so she brought it along and she said, this is my Christmas gift to you. And I said, thank you very much. I fully appreciate it. And if you want to come and join us, you're more than welcome. So again, being in that gratitude, it's not being in the, I always, if I need money for my electric bill or, to fix my car, like the amount of times that I've had something, go wrong with my car, and I just sit there and I go, please make this mended. Please make this fixed. Please sort of, and then either a friend has come along or somebody has got this, or the guy in the garage has said, look, I've got this sitting here and it's not going to cost me anything to put it in. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So this is where we have to be thankful for what we receive, because this is the most important part of it.
So cool. So that makes really good sense to me. All right. So thank you for taking us into this world of where personal power and intentional manifestation changes our experience of life. And your gift for everyone, it changes their experience of meditation. And I absolutely love that you put into the description of it, and we're going to give that link to everyone, that you put into the description of it the fact that it can change how you sleep.
Yes.
And I'm one of those people. I start to listen to a meditation, I'm asleep.
Yeah. And I always say to people, it assists to calm the inner chaos. Like that. Sometimes we need that slowing down, that just letting it go.
Sometimes we do.
We can listen to it. If you want to listen to it daily, it will reduce stress, tension. And that's when we become healthier. We're less stressed and we're less anxious. We don't get all the possibilities of all the nastiness coming towards us. And I call it a nastiness. I don't want to say unhealthiness or something like that, because each of us, it's there and it can happen. So this is why I call it heart-centered beingness. Mm-hmm. It's a heart-centered way of assisting us.
There we go. A heart-centered way of assisting us. I love it.
Thank you.
For people listening to the recording, look in the show notes. For people here live with us, it's in the chat for you. Debbie, this was a delightful journey into your world, and I so appreciate you sharing all of this with everyone and being part of our mission to make teen suicide a thing of the past. You know, what's happening with the manifestation is that it's been turned on its ear.
Yes.
And when I created, and then actually I'll be talking about it a little bit, when I created the Why Not workbook, it was my way of helping people understand that the law of attraction works.
Yes.
No matter what you're putting your attention on. And the power of intentionally putting your intention on what you really want and focusing it there. Thank you so much for the Jedi mindset trick of listening to the critic, listening to the it'll never work without judging it, without pushing it away, and to simply acknowledge it by saying, thank you
for sharing. And thank you, Jackie, for sharing this time and inviting me on. And thank you, I want to say a big shout out, thank you for Katie for all her support and getting all the stuff and keeping us all aligned. That's like herding goldfish. So well done, Katie. And thank you, Jackie, for hi, Kate. I love you. Thank you for all the work you do behind the scenes. I always feel like they're the little worker bees that are doing all the running around. Not that you're not doing that, but she's an absolute amazing lady. So thank you.
Well, it has made this summit dramatically better since she has come in to assist with it. And having speakers, having people like you who are willing to come in and share your great wisdom and experiences and stories. It's just a delightful, Debbie, delightful time. Thank you.
I think I just fumble my way through life, and that's just how it happens. And I think that's when we all do that, we just have to go, it's okay. We're exactly where we need to be at that exact moment. And as long as we're there present, fully engaged in that intention, that's okay.
Sounds good. Fully engaged in the intention.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome, Debbie. Thank you.
Blessing.